You're here because a part of you has already risen to meet this moment. Not the part that questions, or doubts, or tries to understand what's happening, but the part of you that vibrates quietly beneath all of that. The part that already learned the frequency of the timeline you've stepped into. This message doesn't appear for those who are reaching. It appears for those who are resonating. And without realizing it, you've already become the version of yourself who can perceive it. There is a rhythm in your life right now that feels different, even if you can't articulate why. A softness around your thoughts. A quiet shift in how you notice things. A subtle click in the way your attention lands on certain moments, certain ideas, certain sensations. That rhythm is what allowed this message to find you. Not the algorithm, not coincidence, not a random spark of curiosity. It's resonance. You're not being guided toward a timeline. You're noticing what you've already aligned with. You might think you're discovering something new, but what's actually happening is a kind of remembering. A recognition of a frequency you've brushed against before, but only now are steady enough to meet without pulling back. When you encounter something that belongs to the reality you've already entered, it doesn't instruct you. It confirms you. It mirrors what your energy already knows. This is one of those mirrors. And as you listen, notice the subtle sense of inevitability that arises. Not in a dramatic way. Not as if something huge is happening in this exact second. More like a soft settling, a realization that you've been shifting for longer than you realized. The moment your vibration began to match this higher timeline, certain experiences became visible that were invisible before. This message is simply part of that visibility. There is no need to rush, or force, or prove anything. You are not being asked to do anything. Your only task is to notice the resonance that brought you here. The way your inner state and this message recognize each other. That recognition is the doorway. It's how you know you're not trying to arrive. You're already inside. And if you feel that quiet sense of alignment, the kind that feels less like learning and more like remembering, you may want to stay connected to this space. Not out of obligation or habit, but because certain messages don't depend on effort to find you, they depend on resonance. Subscribing is simply a way of letting the field remain open, so when something matches the frequency you're embodying, it can reach you without resistance. But even that choice is part of the unfolding, not a requirement for it. For now, all you need to do is recognize that your presence here is not random. You're not tuning into something outside of yourself. You're tuning into something you've already become. You've been sensing it in the quiet moments, even if you couldn't name it. A subtle difference in how you move through your day. A faint distance from old patterns. A softness where there used to be urgency. These are not signs of a shift that's beginning. They are traces of a shift that already happened. Your consciousness moved first, quietly, long before your mind realized it. And now, awareness is simply catching up to what your energy already became. There's always a delay between the moment your inner frequency rises and the moment your mind recognizes the change. Consciousness doesn't announce its movement. It slips into a higher rhythm the way dawn slips into the sky, without fanfare, without effort, without needing your permission. You don't feel the exact second the light changes. You only notice that the world looks different when you finally open your eyes. That is what's happening now. You're opening your eyes inside a reality you already entered. You may have noticed a kind of gentle disorientation lately. Not confusion, but a sense that the old version of you feels strangely distant, like someone you once knew but can no longer fully inhabit. This distance isn't loss. It's alignment. It's the natural gap that forms when consciousness steps ahead of identity, and identity slowly begins to follow. The old self feels unreachable because you've outgrown the frequency that sustained it. There might also be moments where everything feels unusually clear, even if nothing specific has changed. A quiet recognition that you're standing somewhere new, even though the scenery hasn't caught up yet. This is because the shift happens in the inner field long before it becomes visible in the outer one. Reality rewrites itself from the inside out. By the time your awareness notices, the foundation of the new timeline is already established. Think about how certain choices no longer feel available to you, not because you're resisting them, but because they no longer feel coherent with who you are. That's how consciousness leads. It moves ahead, and then it gently pulls your awareness forward by making the old paths feel heavy, and the new paths feel inevitable. Awareness doesn't create the shift. It recognizes it. If you've been wondering why certain things feel complete without any dramatic closure, it's because the shift didn't require one. Consciousness doesn't break what it outgrows, it simply steps beyond it. The threshold you crossed was not a moment of force or decision. It was a moment of alignment. A moment where your vibration matched a timeline that already held the version of you were becoming. Now your awareness is beginning to see what your energy stepped into. You may feel as if you're remembering something rather than learning it. That sensation is the echo of the crossing. The quiet internal yes that happened before the mind knew a choice had been made. Nothing is being asked of you right now. You're not behind. You're not waiting to become. You're acclimating to what has already shifted within you. Awareness is simply arriving where your energy has already been living. There's a moment, often so subtle that it slips by unnoticed, when your inner frequency rises enough for reality to begin adjusting around you. It doesn't arrive with dramatic signs or sudden revelations. It begins in the quiet, in the slightest shift of how things feel, in the faint sense that the world is leaning toward you rather than standing still. This is the moment you've already passed through, the point where reality started recalibrating itself to match the vibration you stepped into. Recalibration isn't a single event. It's a living process. The moment your energy moved into a higher rhythm, the field around you responded. Not instantly, and not completely, but immediately. Reality doesn't wait for certainty. It responds to frequency. And the moment your inner state changed, the outer world began reshaping itself in ways you could feel before you could fully understand. At first, the changes are small. Tiny shifts in timing. Unexpected ease in places where you once felt tension. A sense that certain situations no longer demand the same energy. These are the earliest signs of recalibration, the field reorganizing around the version of you that has already begun emerging. Nothing is forced. Nothing is taken. Reality simply starts making space for the path that aligns with your new vibration. You might notice that some things feel subtly misaligned now, even if they used to feel normal. That misalignment isn't a problem. It's a sign of recalibration in motion. When your vibration rises, anything that doesn't resonate begins to loosen. The old pathways don't break, they fade. The new ones don't shout, they reveal themselves quietly. Reality moves in the same way you've been moving, softly, steadily, without needing attention. This process is shaped by your continued resonance, not by your effort. The more consistently you inhabit the frequency you've stepped into, the more clearly the world responds. Every small act of coherence, every moment you choose what feels true, every breath that brings you back to yourself, strengthens the timeline you're now living in. It's not about holding a perfect vibration. It's about returning to the one that feels like home. Sometimes recalibration shows up through what falls away. A conversation you no longer chase. A habit that suddenly feels heavy. A desire that dissolves without conflict. These are not losses. They are adjustments. Reality is removing what cannot harmonize with where you're going, not to empty your life, but to clear the space that your new frequency requires. Other times, recalibration shows up through what enters easily. Unexpected clarity. Opportunities that feel natural rather than forced. People or ideas that resonate without explanation. These are expressions of the field aligning with your inner state. They are not rewards. They are reflections. Recalibration continues as long as you continue matching the vibration you've stepped into. It's a conversation between your energy and your reality, one responding to the other. You don't need to manage the process. You simply need to stay aware of it, aware of the subtle ways the world is shifting to meet the self you've already become. This isn't the beginning of the shift. It's the moment you're finally able to feel its movement. There's a calm inside you that feels different from anything you've known before. It's not the kind that comes from distraction or avoidance. It's not the quiet that arrives after exhaustion or surrender. This calm is deeper, quieter, more honest. It's the kind that appears when your nervous system begins to recognize a higher vibration and relax into it. You may not have realized this is what was happening, but the stillness you've been feeling is not withdrawal. It's resonance beginning to take form. For so long, your inner world has been shaped by the frequency of the timeline you were living in. Your thoughts, reactions, and emotions moved at a pace that matched your environment. But now that your vibration has shifted, the body is learning how to reorganize itself around this new rhythm. The calm you feel isn't emptiness, it's spaciousness. It's your system releasing the tension that belonged to an identity you've outgrown. This stillness arrives in small, almost unnoticeable waves. A breath that falls a little more softly. A thought that doesn't rise as urgently as it once did. A moment where you pause, not because you're unsure, but because there is no longer a rush. These aren't symptoms of slowing down. They're signs of becoming aligned. Your nervous system is no longer reacting to the old signals that once demanded so much of you. It's tuning itself to a frequency that doesn't require defense. You might find that this calm feels unfamiliar. Part of you may even question whether something is wrong because it's so different from the internal noise you once carried. But that's only because your body is used to existing in a lower vibration where tension was normal. Now, as you settle into a higher frequency, your system is learning how to feel safe without constant vigilance. This is the beginning of coherence, where your inner state starts matching the energy of the timeline you've entered. This calm might also reveal things you once overlooked. With the noise gone, you may notice subtle intuitions rising, gentle pulls toward clarity or insights that feel like they come from somewhere deeper than your thinking mind. This is your inner world making space for the information that this new timeline requires. Not demands, not forces, requires. A higher frequency carries a different kind of guidance, quieter but more precise. And the stillness you feel is the doorway that allows you to hear it. There may be moments when the calm feels fragile, as if it could disappear at any time. But that's simply the body adjusting, learning the new rhythm in its own way. This isn't about maintaining a perfect state. It's about recognizing the difference between reactivity and resonance. The calm may come and go as you integrate, but its presence is proof that your system is aligning with the vibration you've entered. Nothing about this stillness is passive. It is an active realignment, a rebalancing of your inner world to match a reality that operates at a higher frequency. The more you allow yourself to feel it without questioning it, the more naturally it will expand. This calm isn't the absence of feeling. It's the presence of alignment. There's a moment in every shift where the things you once wanted begin to lose their shape. Not because you forced yourself to let go of them, and not because something dramatic happened to make them fall away, but because your vibration quietly rose beyond the level that used to sustain them. What you're feeling now, the soft fading of old desires, the quiet distance from impulses that once felt urgent, is not the loss of anything essential. It's the natural dissolving of attachments that belong to a timeline you no longer occupy. When your frequency changes, the energetic structure that supported your old preferences can't hold itself together in the same way. The desires that once felt magnetic begin to loosen, not through discipline or resistance, but through mismatch. Your new vibration simply doesn't feed them anymore. And without that nourishment, they fade. You may notice that you can't return to certain thoughts or habits with the same intensity. They feel hollow, distant, almost foreign. That's because the version of you who once needed them is no longer the one steering your inner world. You might feel strange as this happens, like you're drifting away from parts of yourself without knowing exactly where you're going. But dissolving attachments is not drifting. It's alignment. What feels like distance is actually clarity. You're not losing desire, you're shedding what no longer fits the rhythm of the reality you've stepped into. And the space that opens is not emptiness, it's invitation. There may be moments when you try to reconnect with an old pattern out of habit, only to feel an immediate sense of mismatch. The pull isn't there. The spark isn't there. The emotional charge that once drove you doesn't ignite. This isn't failure or inconsistency. It's evidence. Your vibration has moved, and the old timeline can't follow. There can also be a subtle grief in this stage, not because you want those attachments back, but because they once defined you. They were familiar, comforting in their predictability. But you're not returning to them because you no longer resonate with the part of yourself they were built around. You are not abandoning who you were, you're simply growing into a frequency that holds different desires, different impulses, different truths. What's dissolving is not your capacity to want. It's your connection to wants that were born from a version of you that operated on a different frequency. As those attachments fade, notice how your inner world feels lighter, quieter, more spacious. That spaciousness is the first sign that new desires, ones that match your current vibration, are beginning to make themselves known. Not loudly, not urgently, but gently, like a new horizon revealing itself. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to force clarity. As the old dissolves, the new emerges without effort, because resonance always reveals what belongs. Your only task is to allow the fading to happen without interpreting it as loss. It's not loss. It's alignment moving you forward. The attachments dissolving now are simply the ones that can't survive in the frequency you've risen into. And the fact that they're fading is the clearest sign that you've already crossed into the timeline that requires a different version of you, one you are already becoming. There comes a moment in every transformation where the old rhythms that once shaped you begin to fall away, not through effort or force, but through the simple truth that your new vibration no longer sustains them. What you once repeated out of habit, identity, or emotional familiarity now feels strangely distant. The patterns that used to feel automatic begin to lose their grip, not because you fought them, but because the energy that kept them alive is no longer present. This is the quiet exit of past frequencies, subtle, gentle, and unmistakable once you know how to recognize it. You may notice that certain reactions don't arise with the same intensity. You might catch yourself pausing where you once spiraled, breathing where you once braced, choosing silence where you once rushed to fill the space. That pause isn't hesitation. It's evolution. It's the natural slowing of a pattern that no longer matches the frequency you inhabit. Without vibrational fuel, old loops cannot sustain themselves. They lose momentum, like a will gradually coming to rest when nothing pushes it forward. These exits don't always feel dramatic. More often, they unfold almost invisibly. You stop thinking about something that once consumed you. You lose interest in a cycle you thought you were trapped in. You feel less pulled by an impulse that once felt inevitable. This softness is part of the shift. When the frequency changes, the emotional charge dissolves. The mind may not fully understand why, but the body knows. It knows when something no longer resonates, and it quietly loosens its hold. You may be tempted to interpret this as avoidance or numbness, but look more closely. You are not disconnecting. You are detaching from what no longer has the capacity to follow you. The old frequencies can't maintain their structure in the environment of your higher vibration. They fall away because they can't survive the resonance you now hold. There may even be moments where you try to revisit an old pattern, almost out of curiosity, only to feel an immediate mismatch, the sense that it doesn't fit, doesn't land, doesn't feel like you. This mismatch isn't resistance. It's clarity. It's proof that the identity that kept that pattern alive is dissolving. What once felt natural now feels foreign, and what once defined you no longer has a place to attach. As these frequencies exit, you might feel a quiet emptiness where familiar reactions used to live. Not a void, but a clearing. A space that was once filled by old cycles now becomes available for something new, something aligned, coherent, and responsive to your current vibration. You don't have to rush to fill that space. It's meant to open. It's meant to breathe. The release happening now is not something you need to manage. It's not something you need to accelerate or understand fully. It's simply the natural outcome of vibrational mismatch. Your energy has moved, and the patterns built on your old frequency cannot move with you. Their departure is not a sign of instability but a sign of alignment deepening. This is how timelines shift, not through force, but through the quiet disappearance of everything that cannot resonate with who you're becoming. There's a moment in your evolution that almost always goes unnoticed, because it happens before anything visible begins to change. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with clarity or intention. It begins in silence, deep inside the part of you that moves long before the mind can translate what's happening. This is the moment consciousness moves first. The shift begins internally, in a place beneath thought, beneath emotion, beneath anything you could point to and call a decision. And by the time your awareness catches even a glimpse of it, your identity has already changed. You may think of your identity as who you believe yourself to be, but identity isn't thought. It's vibration. It's the frequency you hold without effort, the baseline from which your reality organizes itself. And when that vibration rises, even slightly, your consciousness adjusts instantly, quietly. Nothing external needs to prompt it. No event needs to trigger it. Consciousness responds only to the truth of your internal state. It shifts the moment you're ready, even if you don't know you're ready. This change happens long before your behavior reflects anything new. You may still move through your routines. You may still speak the same words, respond in familiar ways, or feel echoes of old patterns. But internally, something fundamental has already realigned. The external world hasn't caught up yet, and neither has your conscious mind. It's like a seed sprouting underground. You don't see the moment it transforms, but the transformation is already irreversible. You may have sensed this recently in small, subtle ways. A feeling of being slightly out of sync with your surroundings. A quiet awareness that your old reactions feel less natural. A sense that you're watching yourself from a different vantage point, even if nothing dramatic has changed. These sensations are not confusion. They're evidence. Evidence that your consciousness has already stepped into a higher frequency and your awareness is only just beginning to register the shift. This is why certain situations feel different even when they look the same. Why you find yourself questioning things you once accepted automatically. Why old motivations feel faint, as if they belong to someone you're slowly stepping away from. The identity that acted from those motivations no longer exists. What you're experiencing now is the space between the inner shift and the outer reflection, the transitional zone where consciousness has moved and behavior is still adjusting. There's no need to push yourself into new habits or force new outcomes. When consciousness shifts, behavior follows naturally, inevitably. You won't have to convince yourself to change, the old choices simply won't feel coherent anymore. The new ones will emerge without pressure, as if they were always waiting to be chosen. Reality reflects identity, and now that your identity has changed, the reflection will too. It just takes time for the external world to reorganize itself around the vibration you now hold. What's important is recognizing that you're not preparing for the shift, you're in the afterglow of it. The internal movement has already occurred. The rest is alignment, unfolding moment by moment as your awareness integrates into the version of you that consciousness stepped into first. There is a subtle point in every shift where the inner and outer worlds begin to move toward each other, where what you feel internally is no longer separate from what you begin to notice around you. This point is called convergence, and it happens the moment your vibration stabilizes long enough for reality to respond. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily, quietly, like two sides of a bridge meeting in the middle. And what you're experiencing right now, in this very moment, is one of the first signs of that meeting. For a long time, your inner world was rising to meet a frequency that your outer world couldn't yet reflect. You were shifting beneath the surface, adjusting in ways that were invisible even to your own awareness. But now your vibration has held steady long enough for the field around you to begin reorganizing. Reality doesn't change first. It reacts. It follows. And as your inner state has become more coherent, the external world has started shifting in ways you can finally perceive. Convergence isn't about big events. It's about small alignments that signal something deeper is happening. A thought that resonates more clearly than it used to. A sign that appears at the exact moment you needed reassurance. A conversation that feels strangely aligned. The sudden feeling that a path you hadn't considered now feels natural. These are not coincidences. They're convergences, the outer world syncing with the frequency you've been holding. And this message arriving right now is part of that. It found you not because you were looking for it, but because you reached a point where your vibration matched what this message carries. It's one of the first reflections the timeline can offer you. A confirmation that the inner shift you've been moving through is starting to express itself in your external experience. Convergence makes the invisible visible. It makes the internal undeniable. You may have felt a growing coherence inside you, small moments of clarity, sudden insights that seem to appear out of nowhere, a sense that your emotions settle more quickly than before. These are indicators of stabilization. And once stabilization occurs, the timeline that matches your vibration begins to reveal itself through synchronicities, insights, and subtle rearrangements in the flow of your life. This doesn't mean everything changes at once. Convergence is gradual, gentle, and precise. It's the universe adjusting the mirror to reflect who you've already become. You won't have to reach for signs. You'll recognize them naturally, because they feel like echoes of your own inner state. What's meant for you starts to appear without effort. What's not meant for you begins to fall out of view. This phase can feel surreal. You're living between what was and what is unfolding, watching the two realities touch for the first time. Old patterns may feel out of place, while new experiences feel strangely familiar, as if you've stepped into a memory rather than a possibility. That familiarity is the hallmark of convergence. It means you're not walking toward your new timeline, you're walking within it. This moment, right now, is an early convergence. A sign that your vibration and your reality are finally moving in rhythm. All that's left is to let the alignment continue revealing itself, one gentle reflection at a time. There is a version of you that has already grown into the frequency you're learning to hold right now. A version of you who moved through the very questions you're asking, who stabilized in the very clarity you're beginning to feel, who already lives in the timeline that's just starting to reveal itself around you. This future self isn't distant or imaginary. It isn't an aspiration or a goal. It's a vibrational reality that has always existed, waiting for the moment you could meet it. And now, because your frequency has risen to match it, you can feel its pull. This pull doesn't arrive as pressure. It feels more like familiarity. A soft recognition, a subtle sense that certain thoughts or choices feel more natural than they once did. You might notice moments where you behave in ways that surprise you, quieter, clearer, more grounded, more aligned. These aren't glimpses of who you're becoming. They're echoes of who you already are in the timeline your vibration finally matches. The future self doesn't guide you through instruction. It guides you through resonance. It draws you toward the thoughts, feelings, and actions that belong to its frequency. And as you align with that frequency, synchronicities start to appear, not to convince you, but to mirror the connection that has already formed. These synchronicities are not random signs. They are the visible markers of the bridge forming between your present awareness and the timeline you've entered. You've likely felt this pull before, long before you had the language for it. Moments where you felt called towards something without understanding why. Moments where you sensed a shift coming that you couldn't yet see. Moments where you felt strangely guided even when nothing external seemed to be leading you. Those sensations weren't intuition predicting the future. They were resonance recognizing it. Now that your vibration has stabilized, the signal is clearer. The guidance feels less like guessing and more like remembering. The synchronicities unfold with a quiet precision. You stumble across the right message at the right time. You feel the emotional weight lift from choices that no longer belong to you. You become aware of opportunities or insights you couldn't see from a lower frequency. This message itself is part of that unfolding, a reflection of the connection between who you are and who you've already become. There is a tenderness to this phase, because it's the first time you're consciously aware of the relationship between your present identity and your future self. The pull you feel isn't external. It's the natural magnetism of coherence. Two frequencies that match cannot remain separate. They move toward each other until they merge. That merging is already happening. Every moment of clarity, every intuitive nudge, every inner shift is the timeline pulling you into alignment with the version of yourself who already knows the way. You don't need to search for your future self. You don't need to strive to reach it. The moment your vibration aligned, the connection became active. The synchronicities you're seeing now are simply the points where that connection becomes visible. And the more you recognize them, the more naturally the path unfolds. Your future self isn't ahead of you. It's meeting you. There's a truth you may have sensed long before hearing it spoken: the higher timeline you've stepped into was never something you could reach through effort. You couldn't push your way into it, think your way into it, or strive your way forward. The frequency of a higher reality doesn't respond to force. It responds to openness. And the shift you're experiencing now didn't happen because you tried harder. It happened because something in you relaxed enough to let the new vibration in. Effort belongs to the version of you who believed change was something you had to earn. Effort belongs to the timeline where you thought progress required tension, discipline, or struggle. But the moment your energy rose into coherence with a higher frequency, that entire framework stopped applying. Higher timelines don't open through strain. They open through allowing. Through softening. Through becoming available to what already exists. You can feel the difference if you look closely. The changes unfolding within you didn't come from pushing yourself. They came from a quiet internal shift, moments where you let go without realizing, moments where you stopped fighting what wasn't meant for you, moments where clarity surfaced not because you sought it but because you finally had space for it. That space was the doorway. That openness was the alignment. When you try to force your way into a higher state, you're operating from the vibration of not having. But when you let yourself relax into resonance, you rise naturally into a frequency that can hold more clarity, more ease, more truth. Force collapses the field. Openness expands it. That's why the shift didn't arrive when you were striving. It arrived in the moments you least expected, when you were honest, present, unguarded. This isn't about passivity or doing nothing. It's about understanding that your vibration changes not when you chase alignment but when you stop resisting it. Your energy knows where it belongs long before your mind does. And when you finally loosened your grip on how things were supposed to unfold, the vibration you'd been inching toward quietly settled into place. This was the moment the shift happened, not because you made it happen but because you didn't block it. You might notice now that certain choices feel lighter, that certain thoughts come without pressure, that certain intuitions rise effortlessly. These aren't signs that you've become more disciplined or more determined. They're signs that you're aligned. You don't have to fight for clarity in a timeline that already supports the version of you you're becoming. The path feels smoother because resistance has dissolved, not because you're trying harder. Even your presence here is part of that openness. You didn't force yourself into this moment. You resonated with it. And if you feel that resonance, the soft recognition of something that meets you exactly where you are, you can let that be your guide. If you'd like to gently acknowledge that alignment, you're welcome to like this video. Not as an act of engagement, but as a quiet nod to the frequency you're already inhabiting. You didn't climb into this timeline. You opened into it. And everything unfolding now is the result of resonance, not force. There's a certain moment in your shift when life begins to speak back to you. Not through dramatic signs or overwhelming revelations, but through subtle alignments that feel almost too precise to dismiss. These moments are synchronicities, and they appear not to convince you of anything, but to mirror the frequency you've already begun to hold. They are reflections, not persuasion. They are reality whispering, I recognize the vibration you're living in now. When your inner state changes, the external world adjusts in ways your mind can't logically anticipate. You'll notice something small, a phrase you needed to hear, a symbol you've been seeing repeatedly, a message that arrives at the exact moment your awareness becomes ready for it. These aren't attempts to push you toward a new path. They're confirmations that you've already stepped onto it. Synchronicity is the feedback loop of a universe responding to your frequency. As your vibration stabilizes, synchronicities become more frequent, not because the world suddenly starts sending you signs, but because you've risen into a timeline where those signs naturally exist. They don't appear to wake you up. They appear because you are awake. They don't appear to pull you into alignment. They appear because you are aligned enough to perceive them. Think of them as echoes. The vibration you hold within yourself is the sound, and synchronicity is the echo returning. When the echo becomes clear and consistent, it means your field is steady. It means your inner world and outer world are finally in conversation. This conversation used to be muffled when your vibration was scattered or shifting. But now, the frequency you're holding has enough coherence for the world to respond with clarity. You might notice patterns repeating in ways that feel strangely intentional. You might find yourself thinking of someone moments before they reach out, or encountering the same message across different places without looking for it. You might feel drawn to certain people or ideas with a sense of inevitability, as if something inside you already knows they belong to your new reality. These moments don't arise from chance. They arise from resonance. Synchronicity doesn't tell you what to do. It reveals where you already are. It shows you the alignment you've achieved, not the alignment you're chasing. That's why it feels familiar rather than surprising. Deep down, you've sensed these shifts long before the signs appeared. The signs simply give shape to what your energy has already been living. You don't need to interpret every synchronicity or decode its meaning. That urge comes from the mind trying to control what the heart already understands. Instead, notice how each synchronicity feels. Notice the soft recognition it brings. Notice how it affirms the quiet knowing you've been carrying beneath your thoughts. This is the point. Not to decipher, but to recognize. Synchronicity is the universe mirroring the frequency you inhabit. When it appears, it's not trying to convince you of your path. It's reflecting back the truth that you're already walking it. There is a kind of clarity that doesn't arrive through thought. It isn't something you reason your way into, and it doesn't come from collecting information or analyzing your experiences. It appears suddenly, quietly, like a soft lock sliding into place inside you. This is the emotional click, the moment when the body recognizes something your mind hasn't yet fully understood. It's the subtle sense of familiarity that tells you, without explanation, that what you're encountering matches the vibration you've already shifted into. You've likely felt this click before, even if you didn't have the language for it. It's that instant of resonance where a word, a feeling, a moment, or a realization drops into you with a sense of inevitability. Not because it's new, but because it echoes something you've been carrying beneath your awareness. When your vibration rises, your body becomes attuned to a different frequency of truth, and anything that matches it lands with a clarity that bypasses thought entirely. This kind of clarity feels different from certainty. Certainty often comes from the mind, trying to make sense of things or reach a conclusion. The emotional click, on the other hand, feels like recognition, like your body is remembering something rather than discovering it. It's warm, grounding, and strangely calm. It doesn't rush you forward, it settles you into where you already are. You may feel it as a soft drop in your chest, a widening in your breath, a moment where everything goes still for a second. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet yes that doesn't need to be spoken. Sometimes it's a release of tension you didn't know you were holding. Sometimes it's simply the sense that something you're hearing is not just right, it's familiar, as if it's been waiting inside you to be acknowledged. This recognition happens because your body adapts faster than your mind. When your vibration shifts, your system begins responding to different cues, different signals, different truths. The emotional click is your body's way of saying, this belongs to the frequency you're living now. This matches who you've already become. It's coherence felt from the inside. If you look closely, you'll notice that these clicks often happen around insights or ideas you weren't consciously seeking. They appear in the spaces between your thoughts, in quiet observations, in moments where your guard is down. That's because the new vibration doesn't need force to be recognized. It reveals itself gently, slipping in through the parts of you that are already aligned. You might also notice that the emotional click feels peaceful even when the realization itself is surprising. That calmness is the sign that the information is resonant. It doesn't agitate. It doesn't confuse. It settles. The body only relaxes into what matches its truth. And every time this click happens, your awareness grows stronger. The more you recognize the feeling of resonance, the easier it becomes to distinguish it from old patterns, old fears, or old habits of thought. The emotional click becomes your compass, not because it tells you where to go, but because it shows you what already aligns. This moment right now may be one of those clicks. Not because you're being persuaded, but because something in you recognizes this as familiar. Not new, just newly visible. There's a moment during every shift where your inner world begins to sound different. Not because you're forcing positive thoughts or trying to manage your mind, but because your identity has changed at a level deeper than thought. When identity shifts, the mind naturally follows. It reorganizes itself around the new frequency you're holding. And that's why your inner dialogue is starting to feel quieter, clearer, and more truthful. It's not discipline. It's alignment. You may have noticed that the noise that used to fill your mind doesn't rise with the same intensity. The spirals that once felt automatic lose their momentum. The narratives that once pulled you back into doubt or confusion don't have the same grip. This isn't because you've become stronger in the old sense of the word. It's because those thoughts belong to a previous identity field, an identity you no longer inhabit. When the vibration changes, the mind's architecture changes with it. The quieter thoughts you're experiencing aren't emptiness. They're clarity. They're the natural result of a mind learning to operate in a field where truth feels safer than fear, where coherence feels more familiar than chaos. The mind is recalibrating to match who you've become, not who you used to be. You're not suppressing anything. You're expanding beyond it. You might also notice that your thoughts feel more like observations than judgments. There's a softness around them, a little more space between stimulus and response. This space is where your new identity is settling. The old impulse to react quickly or harshly fades because you're no longer thinking from fragmentation. You're thinking from coherence. And coherence doesn't rush. It recognizes. In this new identity field, your inner dialogue begins to lose its urgency. The mind is no longer trying to protect you from realities that no longer exist. It's no longer anticipating threats that belong to a timeline you've already stepped out of. Instead, it begins to reflect the steadiness of your vibration. The thoughts that arise feel truer because they're no longer filtered through fear or unmet expectations. They come from alignment, from presence, from the version of you that already exists in this higher timeline. You may find that certain thoughts arrive with a kind of gentleness you're not used to. A voice inside quietly saying, "This no longer matters," or "This feels right," or simply, "This is who I am now." This is not a new voice. It's the voice that was always underneath the noise. Now that the noise is dissolving, you can finally hear it. You might also notice that your mind releases stories faster than before. You don't cling to interpretations in the same way, because your identity is no longer sustained by them. You're no longer trying to define yourself through old narratives. You're letting them pass because they don't resonate. This is what it feels like when the mind aligns with a new frequency. It stops fighting the present. This shift in your inner dialogue is not something you created. It's something you allowed. As your identity rose to match your new timeline, your thoughts adjusted instinctively. The mind is simply learning to speak the language of the vibration you now hold. There's a subtle moment in your unfolding where you begin to sense that who you are is no longer defined by the patterns you once carried. Not because you forced yourself to change, but because your internal frequency shifted into a field that naturally expresses a different version of you. Identity isn't built from thought or behavior. Identity is vibration. It's the quiet, consistent frequency beneath everything you do, everything you choose, everything you recognize as you. And now, that frequency has changed. You may notice yourself thinking from a place that feels steadier, even if life around you hasn't visibly transformed yet. The thoughts rising inside you carry a different tone, less reactive, more grounded, more resonant with the timeline you've entered. They don't push. They don't rush. They unfold. This is the sign of a new identity field taking shape, an inner atmosphere formed by the frequency you've stabilized into. You might hear yourself responding to situations in ways that surprise you. Not with the old reflexes that came from fear or urgency, but with a clarity you didn't have to reach for. This isn't a performance. It's coherence. When your vibration rises, your responses follow naturally. The identity operating beneath the surface begins to reveal itself without effort, because the mind and emotions adjust to the field they now live inside. There may be moments where you recognize that certain reactions simply don't occur anymore. The old loop that once activated instantly now feels distant, like a faint memory you no longer inhabit. This isn't you suppressing anything. It's you no longer vibrating at the frequency that sustained those reactions. The old identity can't activate in a field that doesn't belong to it. Just as a tuning fork resonates only with matching frequencies, your inner world now resonates with thoughts and impulses aligned with the identity you've grown into. That's why some situations feel easier to navigate, why certain boundaries feel more natural, why clarity rises before confusion can take hold. You're not trying to be someone new. You're thinking from the identity that already exists inside your new timeline. Sometimes this identity field reveals itself through what you no longer tolerate, habits, conversations, or roles that once felt familiar but now feel misaligned. Other times, it reveals itself through what feels effortless, moments of honesty, stillness, or intuition that arise without prompting. These are expressions of your new baseline, the frequency that shapes your perception from the inside out. This change may feel subtle, but it's profound. Identity doesn't shift through intention. It shifts through resonance. The fact that you're noticing these changes means you've crossed far enough into this new timeline for your awareness to catch up. You're beginning to sense yourself from the inside, not as who you were, not as who you hope to become, but as who you already are in this higher field. Identity expressed as frequency means you don't have to hold yourself to anything. You simply return to your resonance. And every time you do, you think, speak, and respond from the version of you that already matches the reality you've stepped into. This is the new identity settling. Quiet. Natural. Undeniable. There comes a phase in your shift where the changes inside you need something simple, something quiet, something profoundly human to become steady, awareness. Not effort, not discipline, not spiritual performance. Just awareness. Because when you notice what has shifted within you, the shift strengthens. When you acknowledge what feels different, the difference becomes real. Awareness is what anchors coherence. It's what helps the new timeline settle into something you can live from rather than brush against. Most of the transformation you've moved through has been internal, happening beneath the surface of your conscious mind. Your vibration rose. Your identity shifted. Your nervous system adapted. But awareness is the moment the light touches all of that. It's the moment something inside you says, quietly but firmly, this is true now. And in that moment of recognition, the new frequency gains structure. It begins to hold form in a stable way. Awareness doesn't change your vibration. It aligns you with it. It allows your mind to match the identity your energy has already become. Without awareness, the shift remains partial, present, but not embodied. With awareness, the shift becomes lived. It becomes the baseline you return to without effort. Think of awareness as the bridge that lets your outer life sync with your inner expansion. You might notice moments lately where something inside you recognizes a pattern dissolving, a habit softening, a clearer voice emerging. These moments are not small. They are the exact points where stabilization begins. Recognition turns the invisible into the undeniable. It confirms the shift your energy already made. And the more you notice these moments, the more stable your new frequency becomes. Awareness also reduces the pull of old timelines. When you're unconscious of your growth, it's easier to fall back into familiar patterns simply because they're known. But when you see yourself clearly, when you feel the difference in your thoughts, your reactions, your emotional rhythm, you naturally stop feeding what no longer resonates. The old timeline loses its access to you not by resistance, but by recognition. Awareness becomes a quiet boundary that requires no force to maintain. There's a gentleness in this phase. You don't need to track every shift or analyze every sensation. Stabilization happens through noticing, not through managing. When something feels clearer, let yourself feel it. When something feels easier, allow it. When you sense that your reactions are softer or your thoughts are more grounded, acknowledge it. These acknowledgements act like anchors. They give weight to the new identity, helping it become the default rather than the exception. Over time, you'll start to experience moments where the new timeline feels less like something you crossed into and more like something that has settled around you, something that fits, that holds, that mirrors the version of you you've grown into. This is what happens when awareness meets coherence. The timeline becomes less fragile and more inevitable. Stabilization is not about holding on tightly. It's about seeing clearly. The more you recognize the self you've already become, the more naturally your reality forms around that recognition. Awareness is not the final step, it's the moment the shift becomes yours. Integration is often imagined as something you have to work at, something you must hold on to tightly or practice constantly to avoid slipping backward. But that idea belongs to an old version of you, the version who believed change required friction. In the timeline you've stepped into, integration unfolds differently. It doesn't come from pressure. It comes from alignment. It deepens not because you push, but because you resonate. When your vibration shifts, your system naturally begins to reorganize itself around that higher frequency. This process doesn't need force to continue. It needs space. It needs honesty. It needs the absence of resistance. Integration happens when you allow yourself to live from the frequency you've already matched, moment by moment, without trying to make the experience look a certain way. You might notice the integration happening through the smallest things. A breath that lands more softly. A choice that feels effortless instead of heavy. A reaction that dissolves before it takes shape. These aren't accidents. They are signs that your inner world is syncing with the timeline you've entered. And the more you let these moments arise naturally, without trying to perfect them or hold on to them, the more stable your shift becomes. Pressure disrupts integration because pressure comes from fear, fear of losing progress, fear of slipping back, fear of not being enough. But you're not returning to an old version of yourself. You've already outgrown the frequency that sustained those older patterns. The new timeline isn't fragile, and your connection to it doesn't depend on constant vigilance. It strengthens through resonance, not effort. When you let yourself move gently, the integration deepens on its own. You may also notice that integration shows up through contrast. When something feels off, it becomes clear more quickly. You sense misalignment almost immediately. This clarity isn't a setback. It's refinement. It's your system learning to navigate from the new frequency rather than the old. The moments of contrast simply help you return to coherence, not through force, but through recognition. Integration also expresses itself through your emotional world. Emotions that once overwhelmed you might move through your system more fluidly now. Not because you've mastered them, but because you're no longer clinging to the identity that gave them shape. The new vibration doesn't reject emotion, it gives it space to move without defining you. That freedom is part of the integration. It shows you that feeling something doesn't pull you out of alignment unless you resist it. As you continue in this timeline, you'll see that integration becomes a rhythm rather than an effort. A quiet returning to yourself. A soft remembering of the frequency you're meant to inhabit. You don't have to hold it tightly. You don't have to monitor it constantly. You simply need to notice when you're in resonance and allow yourself to stay there without forcing anything to be different. Alignment is enough. Alignment is everything. When you're aligned, integration happens automatically, the way a river naturally shapes the land it moves through. It's not a task. It's a flow. And every moment you let yourself rest in your new vibration, the timeline strengthens around you, quietly, steadily, without effort. There's a moment in every transformation where the shift stops feeling like something you're moving toward and begins feeling like something that has moved into you. Not with a dramatic realization or a sudden breakthrough, but with a soft internal settling, one that arrives almost without sound. This is the moment the timeline you've entered begins to anchor itself, not through declaration or intention, but through the quiet recognition that your body already knows where it belongs. You might feel it first as a release you didn't consciously choose. A loosening in your chest. A deeper breath that arrives without effort. A sense that you're no longer holding yourself in the way you once did. These sensations aren't coincidences. They're the physical expression of alignment, the body's way of adjusting to a vibration it has finally matched. The anchoring doesn't happen in the mind. It happens in the nervous system, slowly, gently, unmistakably. You may notice that your thoughts don't leap to interpret or control this moment. They become quieter, as if stepping aside to let something more fundamental take the lead. The mind doesn't need to label the shift for the shift to be real. It simply observes the new ease, the new clarity, the new spaciousness. When a timeline settles into you, the mind becomes an observer rather than the architect. It recognizes rather than directs. This settling often feels like an arrival, but not the kind you announce. It's an inner arriving, a sense that you're no longer stretching to reach something. Instead, something has reached you. Something familiar, something you sensed long before you could articulate it. The body relaxes because it no longer feels the need to brace against what comes next. It understands that what comes next already resonates. There's also a subtle recognition that you're not trying to stay aligned. Alignment stops feeling like a task. It becomes your natural resting point. You find yourself responding from clarity without forcing clarity. You find yourself choosing differently without convincing yourself to change. You find yourself moving through your day as if the shift wasn't something you achieved, but something you allowed. This is the moment where the timeline begins to feel like home. Not a place you visit through effort, but a frequency you inhabit without trying. The internal posture that once held tension softens. The thoughts that once pushed quiet down. The emotions that once surged find a gentler flow. Nothing dramatic has occurred, yet something irreversible has taken root. As you listen, you may notice a part of you recognizing this, some aspect of your inner world quietly nodding, as if acknowledging a truth it has been waiting to hear reflected back. If there's a moment in this shift that stands out to you, a moment where you felt the settling, the softening, or the recognition, you're welcome to share it. Not as feedback, but as resonance, as a way of naming what already moved within you. This anchoring doesn't require words. It only requires noticing. And the more you notice, the deeper the timeline settles into you. There comes a point in every transformation where the old version of you stops being a place you can return to. Not because you're resisting it, not because you're trying to outrun it, and not because you've outgrown it in some dramatic, heroic way. It simply loses its shape. Its gravity fades. Its pathways close, not through force, but through vibrational truth. Your old timeline cannot reclaim you because your current frequency no longer sustains what once held you there. You may notice this in quiet ways. Patterns that once felt inevitable now feel distant, almost unfamiliar. Choices that once felt automatic don't arise with the same momentum. Emotional reactions that once defined you dissolve before they can take form. At first, this can feel strange, not because you want to go back, but because you're realizing how little of you is still connected to what you used to be. The identity you once lived inside has become a memory, not a home. The old timeline operated on a specific vibration, one you no longer match. Every thought, habit, and emotion you carried there depended on that frequency to stay alive. Now that you've shifted, those structures have nothing to anchor themselves to. They can't sustain their shape in your current field. Even if you tried to step back into them, something inside you would feel immediately misaligned, as if your system can no longer pretend to be who it once was. This isn't about perfection or constant clarity. You may still feel echoes from the past, old fears, old urges, old doubts. But echoes don't have power. They don't pull you back. They simply pass through a space that no longer holds resonance for them. The difference now is that you feel the mismatch instantly. What once felt normal now feels heavy. What once fit now feels too small. This recognition is the closure. The inevitability isn't in pushing the past away, it's in the fact that your vibration won't let you re-enter what you've already surpassed. There's a deep relief that comes with this realization. You don't have to guard your growth or fear losing progress. You're not balancing on the edge of who you used to be. You've crossed far enough into your new frequency that the old one has dissolved behind you. And because identity is vibrational, not conceptual, you can feel that truth even if you can't articulate it. There's a steadiness in you now, a subtle knowing that the path behind you is closed, not as punishment, but as protection. As this new identity continues to settle, you'll notice that your choices feel different. They're made from clarity rather than survival. Your boundaries feel different. They emerge naturally instead of being forced. Your desires feel different. They rise from alignment rather than lack. These shifts aren't improvements, they're indicators that your old identity no longer has influence. You've moved into a timeline where the version of you who struggled to maintain coherence simply doesn't exist. Closure doesn't arrive with finality. It arrives with ease. With a soft awareness that you are no longer shaped by the frequency that once defined you. The past isn't pulling at you anymore. It can't. You're living in a vibration where only what resonates can remain, and who you used to be is no longer resonant. That truth, gentle and solid, is the sign that you're fully living the identity of the timeline you've already entered.